What's up, everybody? The Super Bowl is finally just a couple of days away. I'm so fucking excited to see my Eagles in there once again. It's been a few years. I've been a fan since they lost to the Raiders in the 81 Super Bowl, whatever it was. I don't remember now, but I was a kid, and that's when I first became an Eagles fan with Jaws and Carmichael and the boys back then. And it's been a lot of up and down years. Anybody who follows the NFL will know, if I've been a fan that long, how much I've been through positive and negatively with them. First time since the Eagles faced the Patriots, you got the two number one seeds facing each other in the Super Bowl. Mahomes, he's 10-3 straight up in his 13 postseason appearances. Number one pass offense in Kansas City versus the number one pass defense in the Eagles. The top ranked pass defense has come out on top each time. I believe it's happened twice so far in the Super Bowl, and the defense has won both times. It might have been 3 times, but I believe it's 2-0. So a small sample size there, but it's something that favors my team, so I like bringing that up. Take that in mind as you listen to that stat. The K.C brothers, first brothers to face each other in the Super Bowl. You guys know all about the storylines. Andy Reid, 14 years as the head coach of the Eagles, 10 years now as the head coach with Kansas City. Pretty impressive to me. He's one of the best all-time coaches in NFL history. I wouldn't put him top 3 yet, but he's definitely top 5 in my opinion. I'd have to really sit down and think about it. He might be just outside the top 5, but he's climbing the ranks. He's still young enough to win or get back to the Super Bowl a couple more times to solidify himself in the top 5 or move himself into it. Mahomes and Hurts are the youngest combined age of starting QBs to face each other in Super Bowl history. Both QBs are also dealing with injuries, so this is going to be a big thing. That 2 weeks is going to be huge for Hurts' shoulder and for Mahomes' ankle. I want to see both these QBs healthy. You know that KC's beat up with at the wide receiver position a little bit right now, and the Eagles, they got Lane Johnson playing through that groin injury where he's going to need off-season surgery. So both teams, as you'd expect, every team is beat up throughout the NFL season, and by the end of it, no team or player is 100% healthy. But hopefully these guys are as healthy as possible because they are two of the more exciting quarterbacks in the NFL. Top 2 teams in sacks this year as well. The Eagles had 70 in the regular season, 78 through the playoffs, or including the playoffs so far. Sorry, my daughter's dog's wandering behind me, and I don't let him up here too often without me paying close attention to him. And Kansas City finished with 55 on the year. The Eagles have 4 players with 12 plus sacks, 4 that finished with 10 plus sacks in the regular season. Hassan Reddick led the way with 16.5 in the regular season, or 16 in the regular season, sorry. And he's added 3.5 in the playoffs. So he is the sack leader as of right now before Super Bowl Sunday. Reddick, Bosa, and Jones will have all played the same games, and Reddick has 19.5 sacks, the leader in that category. So take that however you want it. Chiefs led the NFL in scoring, 28.2 points per game, and yards per play, 6.4 yards per play. Opponents scored on 67.3% of their trips inside Kansas City's red zone, ranking them 29th in red zone defense. The Chiefs allowed 33 passing TDs this year, the most allowed in the league. Eagles scored a TD on 67.8% of their offensive trips inside opponents' red zones, ranking them 3rd ranked red zone offense in the NFL. Eagles have an NFL record 39 rushing TDs this year, including 7 TDs and 460 yards on the ground in 2 playoff games thus far. Philly was number 1 in pass rush wins. The Eagles' 52% pass rush win rate was number 1 in the league. According to ESPN's receiver tracking metrics, no secondary allowed receivers to get open less than the Eagles' secondary did. James Bradbury led all corners this year in least yards per coverage snaps at 0.7 per Next Gen Stats. I got that from. KC were number 1 in the league in pass block win rate. So you get a lot of number 1s going against number 1s, a lot of top 3s, top 5s in this matchup with both the Eagles and the Chiefs. Mahomes led all QBs in pass yards with 5,250, TD passes with 41, and total QBR 77.5, which is the reason why he won the MVP award last night, as I'm doing this Friday morning here. Hurts, he was definitely MVP conversation. So you even got two quarterbacks who were in the MVP talks. Somehow Hurts missing 2 games had an ill effect on how the voters perceived him in the MVP race. It is what it is. We all have our own opinions. I still think Mahomes won it this year, don't get me wrong, but I think Hurts should have been the second choice on that ballot. Phillies ran for at least 135 yards 12 times this year, and have topped the 200 rushing yard mark 5 times. They've also faced 8 of the 10 top 10 run defenses in the NFL, and they faced, I think it's 12 of the top 15 run defenses in the NFL, and they've still been able to run the ball like this. I hear a lot of talk that Kansas City needs to shut down the Eagles' run game, and that is true, just like the Eagles need to contain Patrick Mahomes. Don't let him get out and do all them trick plays, although when he's doing them trick plays, usually it means because you're getting pressure and because Kansas City is trailing in the game. So I don't know which one I'd prefer in that, really, to tell you the truth. Hurts can become the first true dual threat QB in NFL history to win a Super Bowl. 13 rushing TDs and over 700 yards on the ground to go along with 22 passing TDs and 3,701 yards through the air. Neither team was supposed to make the playoffs this year, if you had to listen to preseason prognosticators and media outlets talking about these two teams with the loss of Tyreek Hill for Kansas City. How are they going to survive? How is their passing game going to thrive? Well, I guess that shows you why, another reason why Patrick Mahomes won MVP this year. But how is Reed and Sirianni not a little higher on that Coach of the Year list? I'm not saying who should have won it or if either one of them necessarily should have, but look at the preseason opinions about where these two teams were and to where these two teams are now, especially the Eagles. Kansas City was dealt with a tough division, perceived to be a tough division before the season started. So take that with a grain of salt. I think both these teams have a bit of a chip on their shoulder from their preseason outlooks throughout the media community, we'll say. I'm lost for what word I want to say without sounding insulting, so we'll just leave it at that. How much did Kansas City's emotional win over Cincinnati, with all the talk about it's Burrowhead, not Arrowhead, how Cincinnati had dominated, well, not dominated, but had won 3 straight against Kansas City, especially in big moments previously to that game? Did they kind of get overexcited, kind of like I said about the Giants beating Minnesota, how that was kind of the Giants Super Bowl, and they kind of showed when they played the Eagles that they just didn't have that same kind of fight, and just the matchup completely different too, because they actually matched up well against Minnesota's defense offensively, where they didn't match up well at all against Philly. So contrast to styles as well in those two games. Let's go down and compare these two teams. QB. Most people would give the edge to Mahomes. I wouldn't argue on that at all. I would give the edge to Mahomes at quarterback as well. Jalen Hurts is still young and growing, and the way he's progressed, I might change my opinion in a year or two. But as of today, when I'm shooting this video, I would definitely have to say Mahomes is the number 1 quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. The D-line, I think that's definitely to the Eagles. Like I mentioned, 4 players with 12-plus sacks. You got Chris Jones on Kansas City, and who else has more than 6 sacks on that team? So how is Kansas City's D-line, all this talk, they're going to be able to shut out the Eagles' explosive offense, which was ranked 3rd, yet the Eagles' defense with the vicious and ferocious pass rush that knocked out 2 QBs on San Francisco last week is not going to be able to contain Kelsey and Mahomes. And Pacheco too. I can't leave Pacheco out because he's become an important part of Kansas City's offense the second half of the season, especially. The O-line. I got to roll with Philly again on the O-line. Overall depth on the O-line. I think 3 of the 5 best O-linemen are on the Eagles. And that would be Kelsey, Johnson, and Malata. And that's no disrespect to Kansas City, but I think this Philly O-line might be the best offensive line I have seen since the 90s Cowboys, which in my opinion is the best all-time offensive line I've ever seen in my life. that sort of 90 to 94, 91 to 95. I might be off by a year there, here or there, but that was the best offensive line I've seen in my life. And this Eagles offensive line this last few years, ever since their last Super Bowl appearance when they won in 17 against the Patriots, I think this offensive line is better than that one. I think both lines are better than they were in 2017. This is the best Eagles team overall I've seen in my entire life. And like I said, I've been a fan since 81, and I've never seen them this good on both sides of the ball at the same time. And even special teams that improved, which was a bit of a weak spot at the start of the year. They really turned around. I'm so excited for this game. I love this matchup. O-line, I'd give the edge to the Eagles. Tight ends, I don't think there's a debate here. I think K.C is the best tight end. Well, he's definitely the best tight end in the game today, in my opinion. Oh man, there's the three obvious ones that are at the top of that list. But K.C is the best active tight end, in my opinion, and definitely has the edge over Goddard. The wide receivers, I don't see how this doesn't side with Philadelphia. Just to take a look at the top two, and with all the injuries Kansas City has, even a couple of their wideouts are playing hurt, like Van de Scantling, and oh my God, why am I getting, shit. Okay, anyways, but their wide receivers are banged out. Even the ones who are in there are banged up. McCole Hardman's already been put on IR, so I don't know. I don't see how you can give the edge to Kansas City in the wide receivers department. I think that one goes to Philly as well. And Philadelphia's secondary is way better than Kansas City's secondary, not only in talent but experience. Kansas City's got, 3 rookies in their secondary, and that could be a big reason why they allowed so many passing TDs this year. If Chris Jones cannot dominate, and I don't know how people are just expecting him to dominate the Eagles O-line when look what the Eagles did to Nick Bosa 2 weeks ago in the San Francisco game. Outside of that one series, basically, what did Nick Bosa really do the rest of the game? He had, 2 pressures, almost sacked Jalen Hurts in the end zone, and he was quiet and shut out pretty much the rest of the game. Same with their linebackers. They were frozen because of the threat of Hurts running. And I'd love to see how Kansas City's linebackers hold up, because I do think they are very speedy and maybe one of the more underrated linebacking groups in the NFL as a whole, this Kansas City team, which will take me to the next core, linebackers. I'd give a slight edge to Kansas City, but I don't think it's too far off, especially depending on where you line up Hassan Reddick. Do you count him as a linebacker, or do you count him as a D lineman? If you're counting him as a linebacker, then I give the edge to the Eagles, but if he's not counted in your linebacking group, then I have to give the edge to Kansas City, because I just love their speed and their overall sort of reliability that they've shown overall. But they're going to be fooled and hesitating on a lot of them RPOs that the Eagles offensively like to run. So will they be able to really hold and discipline themselves without turning from a 4-5 runner to a 4-8 runner, as I heard in the game a couple of weeks ago? Because just that brief pause you do, your 4-5 speed is no longer 4-5 speed because of the head start that the runner has on you already from just that brief pause. And then you have to take a different angle, makes you get there later, which opens up more vision for the player with the ball, the runner. So there's a lot of things to think about there. These are just my opinions on how these break down. You guys want to look it up on any of the PFF sites or whatever. Form your own opinion from what you've been watching. Mine's sort of a combination of both. That's just how I see these two teams breaking down. In another site, I'd have a bit more water while I'm doing this. I got the rum though here as well, so. The Eagles, as I mentioned earlier, these are the number 1 and number 2 teams in sacks. The 84 Bears had 82 total sacks through the regular season and the postseason. The 85 Bears had 80 total sacks. The Philadelphia Eagles are sitting on 78, so they're 2 away from tying the 85 Bears and 4 away from tying the 84 Bears. Whenever you're talked about with either of those two Bears defensive teams, the best defenses I have ever seen in my entire life, and I'm big. Some of my all-time favorite players are from that old Bears team. Mike Singletary, Richard Dent, Refrigerator Perry. There's so many of the old Bears guys that I love. Walter Payton's one of my all-time favorite running backs. On that NFL running backs jersey, I'd have Walter Payton on there. I'd have him switched with one of the names. I didn't put that jersey together myself. I got it from somewhere. I can't remember where. I've had it since I was probably 17, 18 years old. So that jersey is fucking old. It's from probably early 90s sometime. Philly could have had that sack record if San Fran hadn't lost their quarterbacks. The 40 whiners that I keep hearing going on this nationwide media rampage, the Crying Games Part 2 or something, they won't stop whining about how they should have exploited this and that if this and that didn't happen. Well, you know what should have happened? You should have had a game plan to protect your quarterbacks, because not only did the Eagles D-line knock out one of them on a clean hit, they knocked out two on a clean hit and only had 3 sacks because you were forced to hand the ball off 40 times in the second half because you ran out of quarterbacks because you didn't protect them. It's not like they didn't start the game. You failed to protect your most valuable player on your team, and now you're crying about it 2 weeks later. I haven't heard a peep from the Bengals about them losing a heartbreaker to Kansas City. That game came right down to the wire. You had lots of questionable plays in that game as well as you were watching it. And I'm not saying that Kansas City didn't deserve to win. I think Kansas City did deserve to win, and I was cheering for them to win because I honestly wanted to see Andy Reid face the Eagles and the Kelsey brothers. I just love them stories. Hey, out of there, Cookie. No. Come here. So you can whine and complain all you want. Learn how to protect your quarterback, San Francisco, before you go whining about what could have happened if this happened, if that happened. The world don't happen on if, ands, or buts. You do it. You make shit happen. That's how you're supposed to make things happen. Tell your O-line and your tight ends and your running backs how to block and chip a little bit better, scheme a little better to double team. One of the most ferocious ends in the NFL with Hassan Reddick, and then you got Josh Sweat on the other side, who is very underrated. Javon Hargrave, very underrated on this Eagles defensive line and rarely gets talked about, but he has almost as much speed as Reddick coming from the other side. So if you want to double and chip him, you better watch out for Josh Sweat hitting Mahomes from the other side of the line. How will the wide receiver injuries affect Kansas City in the long run? That is the big question. And how will Kansas City's young rookie secondary hold up against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown? If Kansas City plans on doubling A.J. Brown, I see Devontae getting open a lot in this game. Bradbury did a good job while he was with the Giants when he was assigned to basically cover Kelsey the entire game for New York. So there is a possibility that with a lack of wide receiver talent in Kansas City, well, I shouldn't say lack of talent, just not that high-end Tyreek Hill, take the top off a secondary type threat. You have, especially with the injuries to like Valdez-Scantling and whatnot. I don't know how this matchup really goes for that. Nick Bosa, like I said, he really only had the one good play. I do like my Eagles to win this game. I like them to win this game 31-20, somewhere around there. I'll give you guys some prop bets that I have on this game. I have James Bradbury an interception. I have Hassan Reddick to record a sack. I have Jalen Hurts and Hassan Reddick as Super Bowl MVPs. I have Kenneth Gainwell over 17.5 rushing yards. Quez Walken over 13.5 receiving yards. I have Boston Scott over 10.5 rushing yards. I have total sacks in this game over 4.5. I think there's a lot of talent on both D lines to really hit home and get after these quarterbacks. Noah Gray over 12.5 receiving yards. Either Bradbury or Garner Johnson to record an interception. Jalen Hurts in Anytime TV. Eagles over 25.5 points. And then I've got a long shot first TD as Quez Watkins on Philly side, and a long shot first TD of the game, Noah Gray on Kansas City side. Anyways, that's my picks. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. Let's win our second fucking Super Bowl and make Andy Reid and Mahomes try to meet us again next year. Fly, Eagles, fly. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go. Peace.